Welcome to the next webinar in the Smart Track series at Marywood University. Today's webinar is going to be Bridging the Gap, the pros and the cons for taking a year off. My name is Dr. Christina Brundage. I'm the Career Engagement Specialist here at Marywood University. My contact information is up there, and I also have a co-presenter who can introduce himself as well.
Hello, yes, my name is Chris Morrison. So I am serving right now as the Career Development Center intern, completing some hours as part of my graduate coursework. So yeah, excited to be a part of this presentation and see what we have in store.
So again, today we're talking about the gap year and maybe the benefits and the cons again about why it might be good to take a gap year or might be bad to take a gap year. And everyone's going to be different. But the main thing I want to talk about is, first and foremost, what a gap year is. Maybe you haven't heard of a gap year. Typically, this is done between the year you graduate high school and the year you're supposed to be doing your first year of college. So you take that entire first year of college off and just push college off for a year. Some people actually do this during their college education, but again, most likely it's going to happen before you even start. The majority of people who do take a gap year tend to spend it traveling the world, getting experiences. This isn't a new thing. This is something that's been going on for quite a long time. You can even have seen it going on back in the 1700s in England, where the young elites took what they called grand tours to broaden their knowledge of the world. These were the British elites that just wanted to go out and experience other cultures. In more modern times, they were actually called hippie trails. So instead of a gap year, they called it a hippie trail. And this was post-Cold War, where young people were actually searching for love, freedom, self-awareness, betterment. So again, it wasn't more focused on education as much as just world experiences. Then we also realized that more of this is actually found over in Europe and in Australia. These are more prominent locations where students from those areas are going to take a gap year. It's beginning to take on more popularity in the United States, but it's still not as popular as over in Europe. Another reason, instead of just traveling, especially during these times, is a gap year may also be a reason. The reason why you may also take a gap year is for financial or even personal reasons. So maybe you don't have the money, or you can't afford to immediately begin your college education, or maybe you're required to take care of siblings or something that's going to take your time away from your studies and your education. So that often does happen, and that gap year can also be a time to resolve some of those issues.
Great. So yeah, so who has taken a gap year? I love this slide because I think it really just highlights some people who have had a lot of success doing a variety of different things, but have also taken that time to take that gap year. So it kind of shows that, you know, you can still be successful and take a gap year, and that it's kind of normal. So people do this. Some people from the Obama family, you know, President Obama has taken a gap year, Prince William, Prince Harry, Kate Middleton, Steve Jobs, J.K. Rowling, Bradley Cooper. I'm sure we could make the list longer and longer here of other people as well. But it just really shows that sometimes, you know, people do this, successful people do this. So it's a pretty normal thing. So I think it's good that, you know, we're talking about it now and that you're listening to this presentation now to kind of get a sense of seeing if it's kind of the best thing and the right fit for you.
So now let's dive into kind of the good things that can happen when it comes to a gap year. The first thing is that it has been shown definitely to better prepare you for your college education, because it makes you a more mature person. It gives you major experiences that are going to help you with that maturity. It may even help you re-energize. I know some people that got done with their high school education and they were like, I need some time to breathe and just regain that energy they need to continue their education. and get more interested and pumped to begin their major. And maybe it's even a good thing for someone when they're not 100% sure of what their college path is and what their career is going to be. This gives you time to discover yourself and discover what your career goals are. Maybe you come across something during that year that really strikes your interest, and you know this is the path that you want to take to get to your professional life.
Yeah, and another great pro here too as well is just it helps better understand the world. So it helps you develop and helps you with that global awareness of understanding kind of the world around you. That can be done through some type of travel or some type of volunteering, if that's what you're going to do during your gap year. And just traveling and volunteering alone might help you set you up to kind of explore, immerse yourself in other cultures, see other cultures, be a part of different cultures. And that may be helpful and a good pro for you if you're the type of person that maybe hasn't been outside of the culture you're in. So maybe you grew up in the same area, been around the same people, but a pro to that, kind of doing that gap year would be, well, let's explore some other cultures, some other people, kind of see what's going on in a different side of the world or with a different group of people. But overall, hopefully doing that, getting that global awareness, taking that gap year, traveling, exploring different cultures will help you get some type of greater interest in global affairs and current events, and help you get more connected with those things, which overall is something positive, you know, something good that you can kind of bring to your life.
So even more pros that are beneficial for you. And this is where my area of expertise comes in with the career development, because skills are something that employers are looking for. And the more skills you develop, the more employable you're going to be. And taking this gap year can often lead you to experiences that are going to help you develop these additional skills. And some of these new skills you might learn could be classified as either hard skills and soft skills. Hard skills, for example, would be learning to program in a computer language or learning to operate a forklift, different things that are going to actually give you tangible skills that you can utilize. Soft skills, on the other hand, are more intangible. They're things like, as I mentioned up on the slide here, communication and teamwork and leadership skills. You're developing all of these different things that, again, are leading to a more maturity, so you'll be better prepared for attending college, but you'll also be ready for your internship or any kind of employment opportunity once you do graduate from college. It also gives you an opportunity to learn a new language. When I was reading up on some of those individuals that took the gap years, those famous individuals, Bradley Cooper actually had mentioned that he was so interested in the way the French language sounded, that's one of the places that he went when he went on his gap year. He went over to France and he actually learned the language. You know, you immerse yourself in that culture, you hear them talking on a daily basis, and you begin to continually pick up on that language, and it makes it much more, much easier to understand the language and learn that language. So what better way to learn a new language than just to immerse yourself right in that culture? And again, it's going to help you communicate better. Communication is going to be key moving forward. As we can see with everything going on right now, communication has changed once again. We're communicating online. We're communicating in modalities we haven't used frequently before, such as Zoom or Google Hangouts. We're doing phone conferences because in person isn't as frequent right now. But by learning to communicate with the different cultures, different people that maybe you're traveling the world and you come into contact with, it's going to strengthen your communication skills. Also, maybe instead of traveling for that particular year, you're working and you're doing things actually on the job. Again, here's where those skills development can come in. You're gaining teamwork skills, leadership skills. You're learning how to work more ethically. But I think that's definitely a benefit for the gap year as well.
Yeah, and another pro here is just expanding your network overall. So I'm glad we brought up, or Christina brought up, possibly getting a job or working versus also maybe traveling. So either one of those two things, it can help you set up some type of friendships or those connections, professional connections, which is definitely a good thing to have. I mean, networking is huge. Networking is really important to help you set you up on a path for success. And if you're taking the time to do those kinds of things, whether you're traveling or on the job, it can really set you up for someone maybe you can potentially use as a recommendation, another connection that can get you hooked up with a different opportunity, someone to use as a reference. And those things are important to kind of build up and to develop, especially as you go into the future, looking for other job, career opportunities, things like that. So that's definitely a huge pro that can benefit you if you do end up taking some type of gap year.
And it's definitely never too early to start developing those very important connections, because you never know when that is going to lead to the very next step in your career. And on this one, another pro that's definitely something to consider is it may help to improve your financial situation. Again, I mentioned maybe this is not the time that you can afford college. Maybe you need to get a job so that you can save up and begin your college education, or you need to assist someone in your household with paying some of the bills. Your financial situation can definitely be improved by working full-time, working part-time, and saving that money up. College is definitely expensive, but one of the things that's nice is that if you save up this money, maybe you even qualify for some student loans once you do go back. And that's going to be improving your financial situation even more, especially if you have a little nest egg set aside for yourself for those additional expenditures that college might bring about. But of course, there's cons, and there's things that could potentially have negative effects if you do take a gap year. And of course, that's what this whole webinar is about, to discuss the good, the bad, the ugly, and the fantastic. So let's delve into a little bit about the cons. So the very first thing, potential to fall behind your peers. This is a big fear, and it's something that some people are like, okay, well, if I take this year off, my friends that I graduated with from high school are all going to be a year ahead of me, or maybe it's going to take me a little bit more to get into college and try to get adjusted. And also, what if you take that gap year to try to figure out what you want to do, and you're wasting the time that you could have been utilizing by getting your college education and taking those classes and moving forward with your professional life. So that's just something that a lot of students have a fear about.
Yeah, and another fear, I guess we could say here, is you may lose interest in attending college. So I think that's a pretty well-known fear. Like, you may hear that from a lot of people, like, well, if you don't go now, like, what's the chance of you actually going back? So there's that concern and that fear there. And then even further into that, well, you may decide not to even attend at all. So maybe you take that gap year and get caught up doing something else, some other type of job. You end up immersed in a different culture that takes you away from college and not going back to college. So that could potentially happen. So it's kind of a reasonable fear and something to think about when you're weighing those pros and cons, if that's something that could potentially happen for you.
And following what Chris just mentioned, because it's a good segue into the very next one, you may in fact have a harder time transitioning back because of the different things that you've experienced during that year. Maybe you've gotten married, you've had a child, you've lost your job, something happens that, kind of waylays you from going back, but maybe you do go back. But maybe it makes it even more difficult to transition back from what you were doing in high school to what you're going to be doing in college. Study habits can definitely be lost. I know personally for myself, going from my bachelor's degree to my master's degree, it was several years time before I did that. And it was reprogramming my mind and myself to figure out my time management skills, to try to balance work, life, school, trying to figure out how to fit it all in. And it did take me a little bit longer to transition back in, but once I was there, it was fine. But just consider the fact that you may have, and I'm not saying you will, you may have a little bit harder of a time transitioning back into your practices that you had when you were in school.
Yeah, and with that too, if again you are taking that gap year, having difficulty transitioning back, you may miss out on getting into a certain program, or depending on when you end up going back, you may just miss out on any other type of opportunities like a school of interest had. But specifically, like certain programs have a specific cap. So depending on what school you go to, maybe it's the physician assistance program, something in the communications department where you're going for a certain major, a certain program, they can only take a certain amount of students. So maybe there's a deadline or something that you miss, so that whole transition can kind of trip you up if you miss out getting into a program that you really wanted to be a part of. So that sets you in limbo, like, well, what do I do now? What does the next step look for me from here? So you're kind of stuck in that cycle. So that could definitely potentially be another con.
That could even delay you for an additional year or more before you can actually get into that program if that's what you still want to. So definitely consider that and evaluate if the program that you're interested in at some future time or whenever you're planning on going to college is going to be, short and they're only taking a few students, or is it something that you're easily going to be able to get into? So definitely consider that when you're considering a gap year. More cons. We tried to balance out the number of pros with the number of cons, so it pretty much evens out here. Let's see, we have the cost of traveling. Traveling is very, very expensive. I know every year I consider, okay, so where can I go this year? And it's like, crunch the numbers, we can't go very far.
Yeah.
But especially if you're going to be traveling on your own, you're going to be going to different countries, the cost of traveling could fluctuate from one country to another, because you're going to have the room, the lodging, the food, your expenses, everything like that. So that's something definitely to consider. It may be more expensive than actually going to college, especially if you're going to be able to get grants, you're going to be able to get different scholarships from a university, and all of that makes it more affordable. So the cost might not balance out there. And also, unfortunately, right now, the current global crisis that we've got going on with COVID-19, travel may actually not be very safe right now. I want to travel so badly, but I just don't feel comfortable doing it right now. That's, again, your personal preference. But again, that's something you have to consider and you have to think about. But additionally, with everything going on right now, if you're planning not to travel, but more to spend time during this year to work, save money, employment opportunities are not that abundant right now. We do have a higher level of unemployment. Some of the jobs that are out there may not be the best paying, or they may be more essential positions that put you more at risk, say maybe working in the hospitals or working in some kind of environment where there might be more of a potential for you to come across someone that has been infected. So again, just another thing to consider when you're thinking about taking a gap year.
Yeah, and finally here, it may just be like an overall conflict with the decision. I mean, maybe if you're doing this now, there already is, like, should I do that? Should I not? But especially if like your peers, parents, and teachers, and anyone else like in your support group and your family, some of them may be like expecting or suggesting, well, like you should not take a gap year. You should just go right into college or go right into taking classes and doing those kinds of things. But maybe you're on the fence about it. And you're like, well, I do want to take the gap year. I want to take some time for myself, focus on all those pros that we talked about. So you may not really be getting the support of some people that maybe have always given you support, or people that are in your support group, maybe telling you something different. So it can definitely be kind of conflicting if it's not already. So that can make things especially even more difficult, and it's definitely a con, trying to balance all those different things to really make like the best decision for yourself.
And that even includes financial support,
Mm.
because I know I've spoken to you know, some people that have heard, you know, okay, well, if you don't go right now, I don't know if I'm going to financially support you next year when you're going to college, or I'm not going to be able to support you. You're going to need to get a job. You know, it's just, it could be a financial strain if you are relying on someone else to help support you during that year. So that's definitely something to consider. Okay, we have some pretty good options here. We wanted to bring in these options because of the fact that it may be good for you. This may be something that will work for you, something that you're still planning on doing, but you just needed maybe some suggestions, you know, about why it might be the right thing. Basically, you're trying to validate your decision. But we also wanted to include some of the other options. So if you definitely weigh both the pros and the cons, you know, these are some of the things that we came up with. The first one is, maybe don't take that gap year to go away and to travel. Why don't you attend college and do a study abroad? Study abroad opportunities are absolutely fantastic. You also often get to go over with some of your peers that you're going to college with, you know, which makes it even better experience. You get to go together, grow together, learn things together. It might even be a safer opportunity because it is backed by the university. The university is supporting you going over there to learn about the different cultures and see these different things abroad. So study abroad are definitely great opportunities. Participating in service learning trips. I can vouch for this one because I did, while I was getting my master's degree, I did participate in a service learning experience. We went for our entire senior break, or not our senior break, for our spring break. And we went down to West Virginia. And I only traveled to West Virginia from Pennsylvania, so it wasn't very far. But we got the opportunity to go down and work for Habitat for Humanity. And let me tell you, it was an eye-opening experience. It was definitely a valuable learning experience. I got to work very closely with other students. We got to learn things about one another, learn things about ourselves, grow as individuals, develop additional skills. And it was only for that 1 week's time, but it was definitely an absolutely valuable and worthwhile experience. So service learning trips are fantastic. And I know at Marywood University, we do have some fall trips, we do have some spring trips, and we've had trips to Jamaica, Guatemala, Texas, all over the place. So it's not always the same, it's not always local, but we do try to branch out and give all different opportunities to go out and help different communities and different cultures. So they definitely give you a great worldly experience as well. Also, working part-time while attending school. If it's a financial reason that you're possibly thinking about not going, you could possibly qualify for a part-time job or maybe a work-study position at your college or university. If you're going to school, maybe you can qualify for those scholarships or any different things that can help support you and financially to make sure that you're getting all that you need to be able to attend school. There are a lot of great loans out there. There's a lot of great financial aid packages, scholarships, grants that many of our students, and at Marywood, we have a very high number of students that get aid their very first year. So it's definitely something to look into. So even if you work part-time, that extra money could be something that you put towards your books, so that maybe you can afford your books and maybe your scholarship helps provide money for your tuition at that time. And taking one semester off instead of an entire semester. I know this fall is going to be a little bit different. Our spring semester was a little different as well. Hopefully this upcoming spring semester is going to be just totally different, almost back to normal. But maybe one semester instead of an entire year off, so that you don't get entirely behind. And you just use that one semester to do whatever you wanted to do, whatever you had planned on doing during that gap year.
Yeah, and another option you can also do here is just take some type of online class. So online classes can be really beneficial because they open up the ability for flexibility. So you can kind of maybe take the class when you want, or you don't need to be present at a campus or anything like that. So you can do that, some type of travel, or work those online classes around your work schedule. So you can still continue to be in school, still attend college, but then still be able to do the other things you want to do as well. Again, whether that be travel or doing some other type of work. So you can make those things kind of go hand in hand, develop your own routine and make them work for you. So that could potentially be a very good option. Then the last two here, I mean, are pretty obvious. So you can choose to take the gap year. So that's something you can do on one end, gain those experiences that you want, or you can just choose to not take the gap year and just begin your college education. So that would just really end up and involve you kind of weighing the pros and cons here, figuring out what you want to do, what direction you want to go. But those are pretty much black and white options you have here, and things that you actually are going to have to decide on if you wanted to do that, whether to take the gap year or not take the gap year.
So these, I think, are a lot of great options. Again, this is not all of the options. There's a lot more options, but it's going to be finding something that's going to work for you and your circumstances and what your intentions were for taking that gap year. Okay, these are just some of our suggested options. And basically, to wrap this up for you, again, you're going to have to make your own list of pros and cons for your own situation. These were just pros and cons that were in general. So is this going to work for you? Is this not going to work for you? And I think making a list for yourself based on your situation is really going to help you see and where's the scale tipping and which direction is it going in. If they're still kind of balancing out, the pros and the cons are balancing out, well, is there an option for you, another option for you? Can you do a combination? Can you go to school and work part-time? Can you go to school and do some kind of travel during school? Can you delay your gap year and maybe take that gap year in your sophomore year or your junior year after you've gotten accustomed to that transition from high school to college? Also, knowing your financial situation and what you can afford. Can you afford to travel? That's going to be a big thing. You don't want to max out all your credit cards. You don't want to spend all your money that you had saved, maybe gifts that you'd gotten for graduation from high school, and now you're planning on going to college in the next fall, but you spent all that money traveling, or that money is now gone. So what are you going to do? So know your financial situation, what you can afford, what you can afford to do. Understanding the consequences of not attending. What is this going to cause to happen for you? Okay, is it definitely going to be something that's going to cause you to get behind? Is the program that you wanted to attend maybe a 5-year program because it does the accelerated 5-year master's program? If that's the case, that's going to bump you even further behind. So now you're out even further. And again, maybe you can't get into that program at all the following year. Another thing that I would definitely suggest is to have a backup plan. What's plan A and what's plan B if plan A doesn't work out? Maybe you start traveling and the semester is just about ready to start. You're like, you know what? Maybe cases of COVID-19 have really kicked up, really ramped up. States are starting to do something again where they're restricting travel. Maybe then plan B kicks in where you're like, you know what? I'm going to put my travel on hold and now go back to school. Many colleges and universities have that revolving admissions, and you can easily get a class. I know with Marywood, just right into the first week, a little bit into the second week, you have time to add classes in. You don't want to wait too long to get back into the classes and get your classes scheduled. But having that backup plan is going to be a great way for you to have a fail-safe. You also have to do what's right for you, what your gut's telling you. You know, you can't always listen to other people and what they're telling you is right and wrong, because it's all about you. You're the adult, you're the one who's doing this. It's going to affect you as an individual. So again, you have to make the decision for yourself. And ultimately what it comes down to is being safe. And not just being safe when it comes to, you know, anything going on with COVID, but be safe financially, be safe with your education, be safe with what you're planning for your professional. You don't want to risk anything happening and anything changing the potential of you reaching your professional goals, whether that be getting sick or be financially harming yourself because you've maybe either gone and spent all your money traveling. It's just something to be cautious about, think about, but it's a great experience. So if it's the right experience for you and this is something that you truly want to do, just do it safely, do it the right way. And I'm sure you'll gain valuable knowledge, valuable skills, valuable experiences from it.
Just kind of as Christine was saying, some of the things she was mentioning there, you know, just make sure you have that backup plan. I think that's really essential. That's something that I also wanted to highlight there. Super important, making sure you have that backup plan, having those next steps kind of set up in place if something doesn't go the way you want it to.
Oh, there you are. You were frozen for a little bit.
Okay.
On my end, at least. So did you have anything to add to the conclusion?
Just like that backup plan, I think is essential and is really key and really helpful, just because if something doesn't go the way you hope it does, it's always good to have that next option or something you can fall back on, because worst comes to worst, again, something doesn't happen or you're doing some type of gap year, traveling, and that whole plan kind of goes astray. It's always good to have something set to fall back on, so you're not kind of like left like a deer in the headlights kind of moment, like, oh, like what am I going to do now? So just having everything planned can really help move things along for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I know we don't have anyone in attendance at the moment. You know, this is going to be recorded and put up on Marywood's website with the rest of the fantastic series webinars that we've done over the past couple of weeks. So if you do have any questions after you've been viewing it, you can always reach out to me. Or Chris at career@marywood.edu. This is just the general Career Development Center email, and then it can be forwarded to me or it can be forwarded on to Chris. So we thank you again for attending. We wish you luck with your decision on whether to take a gap year or to not take a gap year. But know that whatever decision you make will be the right one for you. And again, if you have that plan B and things go wrong, there's always another right answer for you. Okay? Yeah. Have a great day. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone.